I thought it would be good if we started with a prayer. It's always helpful. So in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Peace be with you.
And with your spirit.
Come, Holy Spirit, fill the hearts of your faithful and kindle them the fire of your love. Send forth your Spirit, and we shall be created.
And you shall renew the face of the earth.
Let us pray.
Amen.
O God, who by the light of the Holy Spirit did instruct the hearts of the faithful, grant that by the same Holy Spirit we may be truly wise and ever enjoy your consolations through Christ our Lord.
Amen.
Amen.
Officially, good morning.
Good
morning.
Welcome. This is the day that the Lord has made. Rejoice and be glad in it. We've been waiting a long time. I want to also welcome the people of the great Diocese of Las Cruces in New Mexico. I hope we are live streaming to you. Thank you for the gift of your bishop. We see it as a great gift. I know that's not necessarily true for you, but we will keep you in prayer so that the Lord will eventually send you a shepherd as well. I addressed you a week ago, and I told you at that time that I did not know when this was going to happen. I went home for lunch, and the nuncio phoned me and told me. So I said, "Oh my, that's fast." I mean, but I am very pleased. Most of you are aware that at the beginning of this year, I petitioned the Holy Father Pope Francis for a Coadjutor bishop, one who would come here and serve with me and share my ministry, and then would eventually become the next bishop of the Diocese of San Jose. In fact, the process began much earlier than that. When Bishop Daly, Bishop Tom went to Spokane, I had petitioned for an auxiliary bishop, but because of my age, I was about to become 70, they thought it would be better that I not get an auxiliary, because then my successor would inherit an auxiliary that he had no choice in the appointment. But they did promise me at that time that if I ever asked for a coadjutor, that they would grant it. But that was 4 years ago, and I didn't intend to step down as Bishop of San Jose at that time, so I did not ask immediately, because I didn't want the coadjutor bishop to be waiting for me to fall off the perch, as they say, and that he would take over. But last Christmas, after Christmas last year, I decided that it was time to ask the Holy See to fulfill its promise and to send us a coadjutor bishop. I was given permission. You have to write to the Holy See to get permission to ask. So I wrote and got permission to ask, and I asked. And then I prayed and trusted in God and the work of the Holy Spirit that the process would eventually have a happy ending, and it most certainly has. As you know, it was announced this morning in Rome at noon, Washington, D.C., 6 a.m., and here in California at 3 a.m. this morning, that the Holy Father had appointed Bishop Oscar Cantu as Coadjutor Bishop of San Jose. Bishop Oscar has served since 2013 as the second bishop of the Diocese of Las Cruces in the state of New Mexico. Bishop Oscar and I, though seemingly very different in ways, we do share much in common. Aside from the fact that obviously we are both bishops, we love the church. We also studied in Rome, but I at a much earlier stage than he. I'm not even sure if you were born.
My parents were married.
We'll take your word for that. But both of us are committed to the vision of the Second Vatican Council. We are also committed to our Holy Father Pope Francis and the reforms that he is dealing with now in relation to the Universal Church. But when Bishop Oscar was chosen as bishop 10 years ago, when you were 41, he's now 51, when he was chosen, he was the youngest bishop in the United States, and as I saw him last night, I did not find that at all hard to believe. He still looks as though he's the youngest bishop in the United States. Now, many of you may not remember that when I was ordained a bishop, you have to hold your breath, way back in 1989, dinosauric times. I too was at that time, I was the youngest bishop in the country. I'm not anymore. Now, in the 20 years, I find that difficult to believe, but in the 20 years that I have been in San Jose, I have only grown more in love with this local church, with the clergy, the religious, and the lay. It is a wonderful diocese. It's a wonderful diocese. And I will be pleased when the time comes that Bishop Cantu will eventually be the next shepherd of this portion of the Lord's flock. Now, I heard through the grapevine, of course, everybody is Googling you all over the world, but I've heard that you love basketball.
I do.
And that you have played the game now and again yourself. Now, I have two words for you that have to be forever on your lips from now on, and that is Warriors Rule. Don't forget. In closing, then, I ask that you join with me in gratitude to God, of course, to the Holy Father for sending a loving pastor to serve this local church with me for a while, and God willing for many, many years to come. So it's with great joy and gratitude that I now introduce to you our Coadjutor Bishop, Bishop Oscar Cantu.
Thank you, Peter. Well, thank you, and good morning to everybody.
Good morning.
I woke up this morning about 3:30. I don't normally wake up at 3:30, other than to go to the bathroom, but I was not able to get back to sleep. So I wrote a few notes down. So if you don't mind bearing with me, hope I can find them. There we go. So what I thought I might do is I'll read just some thoughts I had early this morning. We'll see if they make any sense. And maybe just to give you a little bit of my background, and then if you have any questions or comments or objections, I'm happy to entertain them. So in the Gospel of St. John, when John the Baptist saw Jesus walking by, he urged two of his disciples to follow him. "There is the Lamb of God," he said. "Follow him." Those two disciples were following John for a reason. John spoke to their hearts. Their hearts yearned for something greater in their lives, something that gave them hope, something that made their lives meaningful. John promised that something was actually someone. the one who was coming. And when he came, John pointed him out. His work was done. Some months ago, I attended a conference that studied the issues of the upcoming Synod on Youth, Vocations, and Discernment. One of the sessions treated the issue of the nuns, not the nuns with the veils, but the N-O-N-E-S. Those persons who don't associate with any religion. Sadly, a great number of them are baptized Catholics. We've known about this reality for some time. Unfortunately, new statistics show us that the average age of those disassociating from the Catholic Church is 13. That's not the early age, but the average age. If this isn't a wake-up call for the church, then we might as well roll over into our graves. It was certainly a wake-up call for me. And this is a wake-up call not only to talk about the new evangelization, new methods, new zeal, new language, but to begin living it. It begins, it continues, and it ends with an encounter with Jesus Christ. Oscar Cantu is challenged to encounter Jesus Christ every day, to allow my life to be challenged and transformed by him. One of the fruits of this encounter is mission, a joyful mission. As I arrive in San Jose, I look forward to continuing the mission of the church in this beautiful part of the world that goes by the name of a man whose own life was transformed by his encounter with a young virgin and the son that she bore. As Jesus invited those first two disciples on a journey, come and see, he told them. He invites you and me to follow him on a journey of discovery, of wonder, of faith, paved by steps of hope and love. I look forward to getting to know you, all the members of this beautiful diocese, and working with you. Walking side by side, shoulder to shoulder, on this journey on which we embark. I must confess that at the moment, my heart is in Las Cruces, in southern New Mexico. I didn't only fall in love with the breathtaking landscapes of New Mexico, with their spicy food, but the people have taken my heart. They have loved me as only siblings can love a brother. And I'm grateful to them for their healing and strength-inducing love. And so my heart remains with them. But I need not despair. God says, I will give you a new heart and place a new spirit within you. And I will sprinkle clean water upon you. So the Lord will give me a new heart for a new corner of his vineyard as I begin this new phase of my own journey. San Jose, pray for us. As Bishop McGrath mentioned, I heard from one of my nephews. He said, Uncle Oscar, I Googled you the other day. He said, I didn't know all of that stuff about you. So I'm not sure if it's all true, but anyway, just a tad bit about myself. I am the fifth of 8 children. of immigrant parents. My mom and dad were born and raised in northern Mexico, and in the other Monterey, the one with 2 R's. My father started working in Chicago as a young man, and in one of his trips back to Monterey, he met my mother, and they got married, and he brought her up to Chicago. So my first 2 siblings were born there. They got tired of shoveling snow, and so they moved down to Texas, where the rest of us, of the 8 children, were born. So I grew up in Texas. We went to, even though we sort of barely made it by economically, my mother raised 8 children, and my father had it easy. He got to leave the house to work. So he was a machinist, and but there was lots of strong values, a sense of sacrifice, a sense of togetherness. And part of that sacrifice was that they sent my siblings and me to Catholic schools. And we were always on scholarship. And when I was in high school, I began to work for my tuition. And so I knew the value of the real value of an education. So I've been in Catholic schools for, I think I counted when I finally finished. I think it was about 25 or 30 years. So they should name a wing after me. But my last stint in Catholic school was with the Jesuits in Rome, the Gregorian. So I hear there are some Jesuits here in this area, of course, Bishop Carlos. And so working as a priest for 14 years in the Houston area, aside from the 4 years I spent doing graduate study in Rome, and 4.5 years in San Antonio as auxiliary bishop there. During that time, I oversaw Catholic education. I was the liaison with the 3 Catholic universities, the 1 Catholic college, the 1 theologate, and the 1 seminary, as well as the 45 high schools and elementary schools that associated with the Archdiocese. So that's been a passion of mine, as well as education, religious education generally. 5.5 years that I've spent in Las Cruces, it was a whole different experience for me. I grew up in a big city. I've always lived in big cities, and then going to Las Cruces, it was a very different experience, very rural, small communities, very spread out, lots of territory, the desert. But as I mentioned, it captured my heart for sure. And so I became very aware of the, if I wasn't already, deep issues of poverty, and how poverty is connects so many elements of life, of addiction, of incarceration, of breakup of family, of education or lack thereof, of health care. And all of those elements weigh on each other. And while it can become a good cycle, it unfortunately devolves into a vicious cycle. So we have been tackling some of those issues. Obviously, we can't solve all of those issues, but to think about what can we do as a church, and primarily what we had been looking at was how do we lend support to the family. because that is the basic unit of society. It's the basic unit of our church. It's been called the domestic church. And so, so those were efforts that we were about in the diocese, and I'm sure priests and staff will continue to move those priorities and efforts forward, and eventually with a new bishop there. So I don't know if it came up in Google or not, but for about three or 4 years, I served and continue to serve on the committee, the Bishops' Committee on International Justice and Peace. So I was the chair for 3 years, which took me to different parts of the country for on a regular basis to express on behalf of the bishops solidarity with the local church, but also to study what the challenges are in those parts of the country, whether it was South Sudan or the Congo, or Palestine or Iraq, or Colombia or Cuba, and so on. So those experiences have certainly marked my soul, my imagination, even my thinking about how I live my personal life, how I take a clean water for granted. So I mentioned that just in case you see some of those elements creeping up in my behavior or conversations. So those have certainly marked my way of thinking and my mind. So it was humbling and eye-opening, and humbling because I was representing the church in the United States, and to know that the arm of charity is in some 96 countries around the world with our name on it, Catholic Relief Services from the United States, and the tremendous work that they do in building up capacity and building up programs that help people lift themselves up out of poverty and out of distress. So so that a global arm and reach of the Catholic Church in the U.S. is really quite tremendous. But just the universal church, period. The fact that I can stand with my brother bishops in the Congo, even though my French is not very good, and to pray with them, and to weep with them, and to share a meal with them. That our church truly is universal. And I know that that universal church is in many ways present in the Diocese of San Jose. So I certainly look forward to getting to know it, to getting to know you and working with you. So that being said, if you have any questions or comments or corrections, maybe. Yes?
Hi, Bishop. Welcome. I really much appreciated that you mentioned the nuns and the young church and the struggle and challenges that we face as church. If you can say a few encouraging words to our young people, what would you say to them?
Well, we had our diocesan youth rally just a few weeks ago, and I expressed some of these thoughts to them as well. But in my own observations, even though Bishop PJ mentioned that I look young, sometimes I don't feel young when I'm getting out of bed in the morning. But the world has changed drastically and so fast, so fast. And sometimes we don't recognize it, if we blink. And but what I am convinced of, and what the church has convinced us, and what Jesus teaches us, is that what hasn't changed and will never change is the human heart. That the human heart always longs for what is true. It searches for what is beautiful. And it longs for what is good. It searches for God. As I mentioned, I grew up in Texas. I used to like, and I still listen sometimes to country western music. There was an old classic, Looking for Love. You haven't heard that one? In all the wrong places. And I think that the secular voice, the voice of so many cultures around the world, try to sell us a false narrative that this or that consumerism or that materialism is going to bring us happiness. And it always leads us to a dead end. And so what we have is the best product in the world. It's what is true and what is beautiful and what is good. The love of a Father and of His Son, Jesus Christ. So I would encourage young people to follow that voice in their hearts, and for all of us, for that matter, to follow that voice in our hearts. We as a church have not packaged that message very well, and that's part of what we need to think about. How do we take that fantastic product, if we can call it that, and how do we package it in a new way that touches hearts and minds, and especially of the young? Yeah. Yes?
So when will you be leaving one home and coming to your new home here?
Well, the date for the massive welcome is set for September 28th. And so just glancing at my own schedule, it looks like I'll probably be coming to stay that week. So just a few days before then. I've got a few other things to take care of, either in my diocese or nationally. So between then, I'll probably make another couple of visits. I need to find a place to live, at least temporarily, is what I've been told. Yeah, I haven't been here 24 hours. I'm told to go out looking for a home.
Bishop, is this your first time to San Jose?
I think so. I've been to California many times. I have some family here. My older brother has lived in California for many years. And so when he was living in the Bay Area, I would, for vacation, I would fly into LA, get a car, and then drive up the coast, and which is beautiful. So I think I drove through, but I didn't stop. So now I'm stopping to stay. Yeah. Yes?
I'm Sister Sophia, and I'm a UFO nun.
Okay.
I was born and raised in Roswell.
Ah.
And I am part of the Las Cruces Diocese,
Yeah.
and I've been in different parts, but I welcome you.
Thank you.
And one of the things that, you're going to love a lot of things about this place, let me tell you. But one of the things that you're not going to miss, I can tell you this, because I was in the Las Cruces Diocese too, is all the driving back and forth, those hundreds of miles that you had to put in, because I remember that one time when I had to go 8 hours just driving.
Yeah.
You will not miss that at all. diocese, and so I welcome you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I've put a lot of miles on my car. Yeah, I may spend just as much time in the car, but not get quite as far. So I am familiar with traffic, but yes, you're right. In fact, a couple of my staff members were in Roswell this past weekend, and they didn't realize that the Alien Festival is on Independence Day week, and so all the aliens were there, and so yeah, and so all the prices go up too as well. So good.
We have Comic-Con, so you'll feel right at home.
And the prices are always high.
Very good.
Bishop,
Yes.
my name is Lupita Vital, and I welcome you. Because your last name is Cantu, do you speak Spanish?
Sí,
Not
claro
a
que sí.
word.
Sí, de hecho iba a escribir parte de mi mensaje en español, pero el iPad no aceptaba el español. Me lo corregía al inglés. Así que, pero sí, estoy con ansias de conocer a la población hispana de San José. Sé que hay mucha población. Mis raíces están firmemente en Monterrey, hasta los codos. Y la mayoría de mis primos y mis tíos están en Monterrey, así que voy de vez en cuando a visitarlos, estoy en contacto con ellos. Entonces sí, estoy entusiasmado estar aquí y poder conocer poco a poco a la población hispana.
Gracias. Thank you, Bishop McGrath.
You're
Because you
welcome.
fight to have a
Well,
bilingual bishop.
I'm now going to learn stuff.
But when I first moved to San Antonio, when I was named auxiliary bishop there, there's something, I don't know if they had it in your time, PJ, but they started some years ago, they refer to it as the bishop's baby bishop school in Rome. So all of the newly ordained bishops from all over the world go to Rome for about 8 days, and so all of the offices and the dicasteries of the Vatican come and speak to us, and they give us a good lecturing on what to do and what not to do, and so on. And in any case, when I was there in 2008, I had just been ordained a few months, and I got a call from, or an email from my secretary, and said there's a benefit golf tournament going on, and they want you to have a team. I said, well, I don't know people yet in San Antonio. I don't know who would serve on the team, but why don't you call the Irish priests? I'm sure they play golf, and sure enough, they were happy to play with me, and they certainly bettered my score. So I thought I would, playing with 3 foreign-born Irishmen, I thought I would hear some Gaelic on the course. I didn't hear any Gaelic, but I did hear a little French.
Depended on the shot.
Very good. Well, again, thank you all, and thank you, Bishop McGrath, for your welcome. And we'll be seeing you around. I'll just it's a quick trip this time around. I'll just here until about midday tomorrow, so I'll get to meet a few of you along through this day. It's going to be a busy day, And, but as I mentioned, I'll probably be back a few more times before the 28th as we make arrangements for that. So in advance of that, I apologize and thank you for for all of the work that's gonna take to put that together. But it'll be a joyful day and a day to celebrate our faith and to celebrate this diocese. So thank you.
Thank all of you. I want to reiterate again our gratitude to Las Cruces. Thank you for the gift of your bishop, and we will keep him. We pray also for a new shepherd for you as well. So God bless you too. Thank you, all of you, and we are the retired priests are. This was already scheduled, our meeting for lunch in my back garden this noon. So Bishop Oscar will be able to meet them. Then we're going to see our first bishop, Bishop Pierre, and visit with him. And then I'm going to bring him to the cathedral to show, oh, that's our rector there, to show you our cathedral, and then later we will have dinner. But then Bishop Oscar leaves tomorrow, as he says, at noon, and we send him back, but he has to promise to return. Thank you again. Thank you very much. All right. I was going to say that the rest of the day is free, but it's not. Just introduce you to the chancellor.
Bishop, can I take your microphone? Yes, please.
You want to grab that one?
So you won't take my
That one. Thank you.
Hello, Bishop.
Yes, yes.
I'll take these and you worry about that.